Okay guys, to continue with part 2, part 1 got disconnected. When I say the mysteries of task-oriented entities, I was wondering why objects have a need to move at all. And before our consciousness, in some sense the view of an unconscious evolutionary animal, the need of behavior, the quest, the way we moved was not based on our individualism, was based on our ecosystem, our environment. The environment moved man before man could move the environment. And so my attention goes to what is the great task here. That means the further you go back in history, the less reality was being lived in accordance to conscious purpose. If there was a purpose, if there was a reasoning, if there were those behind the scenes monitoring the human evolutionary existence, to the being, the purpose was to exist. But unconsciously. Now the task has become to consciously exist. But what does that mean? So the mysteries, let me write this down, the mysteries of task-oriented entities. What is an entity? An experiential claim to existence. What do we mean by task-oriented? What result an ability intends? And mysteries equal what we don't know enough about. We know a little bit, right? But we don't know the full picture, and that renders it as a mystery. So, objects found. So let's say it this way. At the beginning, there was space, something. Let's consider it like this. There was space, or nothing, Then there was matter. Then there was the movement of matter in space. Then there was, so first there's a space. I'm trying to perceive this like a video game. So if I want to create a video game, I create a space, and then I put stuff in it, and then I create the world first, and then I create characters that can interact with the world. So it could be this idea, even monotheistically, through the monotheistic lens, that the soul was made, then the world was made, then the world was made, the soul was made, then the world was made, then human appeared in world. So this would be in the sense like the idea, this might sound bizarre, but sometimes I think, from the perspective of a creator, okay, let's say if I wanted to invent something right now, okay, or let's say there's an inventor, or Alexander Graham Bell, he gets a vision to invent the phone, or Nikola Tesla gets the vision to invent the AC motor, okay? So if, for example, an inventor, if God, of course this is a humanized view of this, but I think it's interesting to look at. So if God was an inventor, an inventor gets the idea of its invention before inventing it. So what I'm trying to say is that from the perspective, if God was, through a humanized view, an inventor, then the inventor's vision, the inventor's ability to, in some sense, have the blueprints in the inner realm. So what I'm saying is, if God equals inventor, if soul equals blueprint of invention, if body equals the invention. So it would mean that the soul is, this might be a bizarre statement, but the soul is God's idea, uncreated man, of man. So if I was to invent something, I think I got it. So I would say it this way: heaven equals God's mind. Yeah, guys, this explains it. I figured it out. So the idea in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a very unique statement. It says after you have done good deeds on this planet, in this world, if you're not enlightened, after this lifetime you go into the moon and there's simulations of paradises, and you pretty much finish all the karma of your good deeds as a heavenly life, as a sort of demigod life. And then you return back to earth. But the idea of heaven being a place of ultimate authorization, right now, if you look at the human experience, so what I'm saying is a human being has an outer realms and has an inner realms. Okay? Human inner realm, human outer realm. In the human outer realm, there's limitations, and in the human inner realm, it appears the limitations appear limitless. So what I'm saying is that God's outer realms equal earth, and God's inner realms equal heaven. Therefore, enlightenment can mean that once you go within, there is no within or without. So it's another way of saying the idea of going to heaven. Once you go to heaven, it's as if God has gone within. And once you understand the nature of the within is through unknown power, it's kind of like this idea that God created the world to see if there can be the unknown. A being that is completely known to itself. Everything is its knowledge. So, just like how in heaven there are not limitations, similarly in the human inner realm there isn't limitations. When it says, when in religion there is this idea that man was made in the image of God, or you have people like Plato say as above or so as above so below, and you have people like in mathematics Mendel who said something, who brought the idea of fractals. So it's saying that the human mind is a mini heaven. So what I'm saying is, right now I'm seeing it, I don't know why I have this sort of clarity right now, that there is God, and God is not inconceivable in the way that we find ourselves, but if man was made the image of the inconceivable, so what it is the same thing that man is experiencing could be considered to be a sort of ultimate archetype. Right? So what I'm saying is, right now as a human being, when I look in front of my eyes, I see forms, myriad forms. Okay, but when I close my eyes, let's say I'm seeing this tree in front of me, I could see this tree suddenly lifting off, its roots lifting off from the soil and just at very fast speed going towards the sky. Do you know? So when I close my eyes, right, I can visualize a different movement of reality that is authorized, that is compared to what's authorized in the outer realms, right? So if I was to consider that instead of me, let's say I'm creating a talk right now, how adorable. But you know, I think this fits my Mr. Within archetype really well, that God is giving a talk, you know, and the inspiration, just like the question many scholars have, where do the images of our mind come from? Are they just the recycled content of our memories, or is there something else? Are they coming from an unknown source? You could even think of it this way, that imagine you have a remote control car, right? And the remote control car suddenly becomes conscious that it's a remote control car. Okay, it can try as many times, it can try to go see how other cars are built, right? But it will come to this conclusion that something is remotely moving it. That is the smartest, most strategic approach, whether it's for aliens, God, angels, whatever, right? You know, and when you look at ancient texts, you see this idea that there were other dimensions they acknowledged. If you were a little kid in ancient Greece, you know, you'd be walking, you know, in the street and suddenly look at the clouds and you'd suddenly think you saw Apollo, and you'd run to your, you know, family, I saw Apollo on the clouds, Ma, you know. The ancients were not ignorant of how their existence was rooted in a mysterious experience. When I say the mysteries of task-oriented entities, honestly, guys, you know, we're all distracting ourselves. We're all distracting ourselves from the big questions because we want small answers. Do you know there are different types of cruelty. There is a type of cruelty where in the outer realms, like let's say two people are violent or someone chooses unnecessary violence. But then there is a cruelty where you never had a chance, right? I mean, the only person I've seen talk about this was, I think, Michel Foucault. And he said something about the structures of power, and he said that, yeah, it is like some people think that it's the intellectuals that can kind of like refine the system and figure out, like, you know, the problems with it, but in some sense he is saying that if the context was conditioned, do you see, like it's literally, you're not just an existential entity, you are a being that aligns to where your attention goes. Hang on, guys, I'm gonna relocate here. I gotta drive to a better parking spot. Never mind. There is no parking spot. So what I'm trying to get to is this idea that, you know, I would say it was this year where I gave this very important talk, you know, one of the most profoundest talks I've ever given. And it was this idea that I realized I'm not a nice person. Okay? You see, a person has anger, has a vigor to fight, you know, when they feel they can overcome what's overcome them. But if something overcomes them to such a degree where they can't fight back, the person goes into a sort of apathetic state. And you know, being alive on this planet is like you're inside this machine, and as the machine works and functions, you begin to see the complexity and the depth in the machine, right? Who was it? Somebody said that if they make you ask the wrong questions, they don't have to worry about your answers. And I think this is what has happened, okay? It's not that a species has been duped. It's that in some sense a transcendental intelligence has been captured by only one dimension of it. That means, imagine there's a multidimensional being. How do you in some sense entrap a multidimensional being? You know, there's some people who like catch rabbits in hunting, right? How do you trap a multidimensional being? And you know what it is? You cannot trap a multidimensional being. You can convince the being to trap itself. And so you would trap that being in a consideration that its abilities are limited to only one dimension. Oh dear humanity, what if we have not been physical from the beginning? So let's follow up the idea of the mysteries of task-oriented entities. What is an entity? It is an object with a sort of experiential ability to move itself and to render for itself multiple versions of meaning. You know what it is? It's like if there was ever an idea that the body was a cocoon and, you know, like what was within it was like a butterfly, we can choose to consider that in the inner realms, every idea you have is the cocoon of the butterfly of the next idea. This song's gonna make me cry. You know, when I was younger, there was a fear of death. But now, the world has become so mysterious, I don't even know what's dying here. What will die here? And how bizarre is that, living a lifetime, going through so many experiences, and realizing that what is experiencing knowledge is an unknown force. In the subtitle, I've written to become or to pass through. And this is one of those questions I have for this world. Should I become the world? Or should I pass through the world? You know, there was something I heard, I don't know who said it. It might have been from Stephen Fry in like some video, I think. But he was saying if you want to, like, I don't remember it exactly, but the idea was something in these lines. That if you want to be something specific in this life, your punishment is that you will become it. And if you want to be something like nothing in this life, your punishment is that you will be nothing. I think it was something in these lines, I'm not sure. But that was the idea. That your intention becomes the outcome. And do you know there's some fire, some force, some feeling in me that feels that the easy way should not be taken. The easiest approach to suffering is dehumanization. It's the idea that you're a self in a game, and if the self is suffering, the self decides not to be a self. And then who is suffering? So if the earth is God's outer realm, if heaven is God's inner realm, if man is a spark of the ultimate creator, so when man goes into heaven, it's the idea of like an inconceivable creator meditating on one of its forms. I mean, think about it, right? If your mind, how many self-simulations does it go through? That means throughout one day of being an existential entity, in accordance to all the ways your attention moves, the brain simulates, especially in accordance to new information coming in. And do you know what I'm suggesting here? I'm suggesting that heaven is moving earth. And perhaps that's why the earth is in the heavens. And so, if heavenly attention meditates on an outer form, that means enlightenment is like an inconceivable creator's pure concentration. Right now, when I think about what moves my body, it's not just existence. It's as if like there are films, there are inner films behind our eyes. And they're not like just like a file cabinet of films where you can cherry pick. They're like a river, you know, that behind your eyes, you're a dynamic being, you're a verb. In front of your eyes, because the inner realms is moving faster than the outer realms, you can consider yourself to be a noun. But there are no nouns here. If there were complete nouns here, the world shouldn't have changed. But the world is changing in the same way that the human experience is changing. That means it's like the same, like think of it this way, it's like the same world, but the ideas and inspirations that move this world are not the same. Imagine a philosopher found himself going into the pearly gates where there's judgment. And so he's there in front of the pearly gates, and a voice comes and says, "Why should I let you in?" And the philosopher says, "Why not?" No, I'm kidding. The philosopher says, because the philosopher says, if the soul was an extension of the creator, then is the creator sending itself to hell? Is the creator sending itself to heaven? So let's see the parallels of this view. I think this is the interesting point here. So I'm a human being. I'm this biological existence. There is this sort of mind, and the mind moves the body. So what does that mean? That means I stand here and then I visualize, let's say, getting up and doing something, and then my body follows through. So if we were to consider the world to be a body of an entity, okay, and also the outer realms of an entity. So it would be something in the sense that the world needs to see its future position before moving to it. Everybody is trying to find some sort of task that gives their life meaning, but the meaning of the task comes from within them. We're living outer lives. What the outer life significance is within us. And so, I'm starting to have this view. Why does the outer realms matter if all the outer realms is trying to achieve is sort of an inner realm state? And if we were truly multidimensional beings, what different sorts of lives do we have right now that we have been in some sense blocked of? I often talk about advanced civilizations, and the advanced civilization is the idea of a civilization of the most advanced beings ever. And when I think about the most advanced beings, I don't consider them to be beings that are capable in one dimension, but in all fathomable dimensions. And so if the most advanced beings are not physical beings, what would that mean to a physical world that intends to advance? It's so strange to be an entity at all, to be at all. And so easily to keep it here. There is an easy way out of all of this. To be so simple that the complexity is not your responsibility. But again, it feels too easy. It feels too easy to become smaller than life so you don't have to engage it. And instead of an inventor, let's try to see the divine as a musician. As if the world is an instrument. The whole planet is an instrument. and we are the melodies it creates. So, let me see if I can take this somewhere. If the inner realms instruct what the outer realms if the inner realms instruct what the outer realms if the inner realms instruct what the outer realms should do, then in order to know what the planet should do, we must already know So I'm pretty much saying this idea that the intention of what to do. So if I want to go, let's say I'm thirsty, and suddenly I get in my inner realms this vision. I get this vision of going to the fridge and, grabbing water. Similarly, and then the outer realms follows up. So in order for us to know what the whole outer physical realm or what the planet needs to do, we have to see the inner realm intent of where it wants to go. So I would say, in order to reach an advanced world, an advanced outer world, we must already see the advanced inner world it needs to go to. So what it is that actually to build the most advanced civilization, I mean human beings are required, of course, but I think it has to do also with the mind of the planet, the mind of the universal sector. So in other words, let's say it this way: to build an advanced civilization, conceptually is done by human beings, but contextually is done by the inner by the inner intent of the universal mind. Alright guys, I'm going to keep this as part 2. And then I'll be back for part 3. Thank you for listening. It'll be a bit later. I guess one thing I'll say before moving on. Honestly, the past few days, I've been thinking that what if the best strategy to my existence is to be nothing? That means if you look at the crowd, they say if you don't do what the crowd does, something like that. When I look at the crowd, when I look at 8 billion human beings on this planet, they all have a sort of attachment of something they want and they're going towards it. Do you understand? It's a sort of attachment game. Whether you're attached, if you're not attached in the outer realms, you're attached in the inner realms. Even if the sense that the person's like, yo man, I'm so saintly and spiritual that I'm enlightened. I just want enlightenment. I'm detached to everything in the outer realms. But you'll see, it's like it's the attachments in the inner realms, right? And so I thought about it to this point that what if this world is here for us to learn to trust everything in nothing? And if we are to trust everything, it includes nothing. That's the powerful word of everything. Because to accept a thing, we got to accept the space where that thing is found. The space can be considered as nothing. And so the mysteries of task-oriented entities, it's like this idea that if you just appeared out of nowhere on this planet, or you were just watching, right now, like you're viewing my talk, imagine you were viewing the talk of existence, right? You were viewing existence. And you'd look at all these creatures and you'd wonder that what are they, in some sense, what is their task? What are they all living for? What are they all surviving for? All the children that are being born in this world, what is their, why are there so many beings appearing here? And at first, you have this idea of like the prison planet, and then you're like, oh my God, are we all like some sort of, caged transcendental animals, But then, my perspective changed, and as much as we have attachments and detachments, I think that this planet is a workstation. We have come here to do some work, and it's like after you're done with work in the office, what do? You go home and you record a talk. There are so many types of karmic outcome for the human experience. My hope is that we're all here to build something. We're all here to invent something. If they make the species forget its ability to invent, oh. So anyways, guys, I'm going to be back for part 3 in a little bit. Thanks for listening. Rise, mankind.